السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، قال الله تعالى في القرآن العظيم: وتلك الجنة التي أورثتموها بما كنتم تعملون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يرويه عن ربه عز وجل أنه قال: أعددت لعبادي الصالحين ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر فاقرأوا إن شئتم فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين. وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Dear brothers and sisters, first and foremost, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has allowed us to come here for Salatul Jummah. We know it is incumbent and obligatory upon every single one of us to be praying Salatul Jummah over here, but it's still a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us the ability to do so. Because there may have been many people that may have wanted to come, but due to certain situations in their lives, they are not able to come. Maybe they were sick, whatever the reasons were, they were not able to come. So first and foremost, we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're here right now in this masjid. As we know, the masajid are the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you only allow someone you love into your house. So we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has allowed us to come here, and also make intention that we try to come here as much as possible, inshallah. On top of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an uncountable number of blessings, and we won't sit here and talk about it, because if we were to do so, we would be talking till we pass away, and we would not be able to mention all the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should just say Alhamdulillah for every single blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us. And the greatest blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us is the blessing of Iman. The fact that we are believers. Because all other blessings pale in comparison to this blessing. Why is that? Because this is the only blessing that gets us into Jannah. And that is true success. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَقَدْ فَازَ. That the person who has been taken away from the fire and entered into Jannah, then indeed that person has gained success. So that is the only true success. And so the fact that we have Iman right now is a huge step towards that direction. But obviously we need to make sure, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the best of all deaths, that we die in this state of iman, because that is the true success, right? If we have iman right now, but na'udhu billah, may Allah protect us, we lose it, then obviously that's the biggest failure. So we need to keep on making an effort on our iman. My topic for today, I wanted to speak about Jannah. And there's a few reasons for that. One is that when we're in this dunya, the nature of this dunya is such that it makes us forgetful. And the nature of this dunya is that it deceives us, right? وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. That what is the life of this world except the enjoyment of deception. So it's just the nature of this dunya. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it like that so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can test us. So that is the purpose of why this dunya is like this. The reality of the matter is, though, that we have become completely engrossed in our lives and we're forgetting about our true abode. We know that Adam alayhi salam, our parents, our forefathers, were actually in Jannah. So our actual homeland is Jannah. So we are actually striving to go back to our homeland. So our heart should always be connected to our homeland, just as many of us may have immigrated from our homelands. And no matter what, no matter how you love the place, how much you love the place that you came to, at the end of the day, home is home. You always have that special love for your homeland. The same way Jannah is our actual homeland, that is actually what we should be striving for and what should be yearning for and what we should have our desires set towards. But unfortunately, because of the nature of the dunya, because we're too busy in our own lives, we never even think about Jannah, even though that is a purpose, that is what we're aiming for, and that is what we're striving for. And obviously the greatest thing in Jannah is that we get to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is what we should be striving for. And additionally, when we remember Jannah, one great thing that happens is that we start losing importance for this dunya. We realize that this is just a test. We realize the reality of this dunya. And a great example for the reality of this dunya is, you may have heard this example before, when a person is traveling to a certain place. Let's say we're going from here to California, and your flight is stopping in Chicago for, let's say, 2 hours. So now if somebody in those 2 hours starts shopping on maybe online, or start looking around, like, is there any furniture stores in the airport? Let's try to get a nice sofa. Let's try to buy, a lamp. I want to get a nice desk and everything like that. Somebody would think this person is crazy. Like, why are you making so much effort? You're literally going to be there for 2 hours, just sit in that hard seat just for 2 hours, or you can even stand up. It's not a big deal if you don't find a seat. It's only for a short period of time. Then you're going to go to your destination, and you can do whatever you want over there. But the reality of this, of the way we are living today, we are living in this dunya as if we're going to live forever. We are preparing for this dunya as if we're going to live in there forever. And as if Jannah is not even a reality. It's not even something that's there. Yes, we may believe in it in the back of our minds, but we are not acting as if we truly believe in Jannah. We are not truly striving and truly doing the actions that will get us in higher and higher levels of Jannah. Why is it that when it comes to the dunya, we're so pleased and we're so concerted, and we're so making so much effort to get more and more and more and more in the dunya? We're involved in the rat race. Whereas when it comes to Jannah, we're happy with the lowest amount. I mean, if we were to hear the blessings of Jannah, then we would never ever be like this. And if we were to truly believe in the blessings of Jannah, then we wouldn't be so complacent when it comes to good actions. So when we talk about Jannah, automatically that gives us more desire to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That gives us more desire to want to work towards Jannah, to do good actions. That's another reason. And finally, another great reason for us talking, and the importance of talking about Jannah and reminding ourselves about Jannah, is that we go through many difficulties in this dunya, right? And that may be difficulties within our own selves individually or collectively. As we know, there's a lot of difficult situations going on in the ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease all of our affairs. So when a lot of times, again, we get down, we get depressed, right? But when we realize that this dunya is literally, as mentioned in the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, إِلَّا مِثْلُ مَا يَجْعَلُ إِصْبَعَهُ فِي الْيَمِّ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ بِمَا يَرْجِعُ. That it's as if a person puts their hand into an ocean, their finger into an ocean, and then he takes it out, and that little drop that comes out, compared to the entire ocean, the dunya compared to the hereafter is like that drop compared to the entire ocean, right? When on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask someone, كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ عَدَّ سِنِينَ, and they will say, يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ. Allah will ask them, how long did you live on the face of this earth? And what will they reply? They will reply that we only lived here for a day or a part of a day. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا, that they only stayed for one evening or one morning. In another ayah, it even says, لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا سَاعَةً مِنَ النَّهَارِ, that they would think that they only stayed for literally a small moment during the day. The point is that this dunya, compared to the hereafter, we will realize that it's literally nothing compared to the hereafter. And that will help us contextualize everything, and it will help us realize that all the difficulties that we're going through as an ummah and as individuals, they will pass. And if I stay steadfast and if I stay connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I will be rewarded greatly for every single difficulty that I go through. And my status will be raised in Jannah for every difficulty that I go through. So remembering Jannah has many, many important benefits. And this is why there was one Sheikh, Sheikh Ashraf Ali Thanwi, a great Sheikh from the Indian subcontinent. In the early 1900s, there was a great plague that had hit his area in India. And so people were, he saw that people were in a very difficult situation. They're seeing people passing away all around them. Maybe their own relatives were passing away. And so now they're very sad, they're very depressed. And then what happens is that he starts to speak to them on a regular basis about Jannah. He starts to talking about the hereafter, starts talking about the grave, starts talking about what is waiting for us after we pass away. And slowly, slowly he sees that people start to be high in spirits again, and they start longing for the hereafter. And so he actually compiled these lectures into a book called Shawq-e Watan in Urdu. In English, it will be translated to Yearning for the Hereafter. I actually have a copy of it right here. So I just went through some of the ahadith that were mentioned in this book talking about Jannah, and I'll just discuss some of the aspects that are mentioned in Jannah. Because our tradition in the Quran and the hadith, there are so many things that are mentioned in detail about Jannah. And this is actually in contrast to the previous scriptures and in contrast to other nations. They have a very general idea of the hereafter. They just believe that there is a heaven, there's a hell, but they don't really know much more than that, right? That's what some scholars have mentioned, that this Quran is so unique and this deen of ours is so unique that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much detail about Jannah, so much detail about Jahannam, so many ahadith and ayat talk about Jannah and Jahannam, whereas the previous nations, they only got a very general and vague idea that there is something called the hereafter, there's something called hellfire, there's something called heaven, right? So this is something that is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, so many, throughout the whole Quran, not a single, maybe a few pages pass without we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning Jannah and some of the details about Jannah. So we'll just mention a few of the things therein. First and foremost, we know that the greatest blessing of Jannah is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That after people will be, enjoying all the things and amazing things of Jannah, after a while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them that, do you have everything you wanted? And they would say, Ya Rab, oh my Lord, what could I want more than this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ridaya fala askhatu alaykum ba'dahu abadan. That now you have my pleasure and I will never be angry with you after today. What more can we want? The purpose of a believer in this life is ultimately to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how amazing of a time will it be when we hear the words from our beloved Lord himself that he is happy with us and that he will never be angry with us ever again. How amazing will that feeling be? On top of that, there's so many other blessings mentioned in the different ahadith. For example, a caller will call, إِنَّ لَكُمْ أَن تَصِحُّوا فَلَا تَسْقَمُوا أَبَدًا. You will be in good health and you will never become sick. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ أَن تَنْعَمُوا فَلَا تَبْأَسُوا أَبَدًا. And indeed, you will be in luxury and you will never be sad ever again. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ أَن تَحْيَوْا فَلَا تَمُوتُوا أَبَدًا. And indeed, you will be living and you will never die after this. And so we see that will actually be one of the greatest blessings given to the people of Jannah. The announcement that will be made that you will never die. Because whenever you're going through some good times or you have something good, the worst feeling is what? When you think, oh man, this is going to end soon. Like even when little kids are playing, what is the worst feeling to them? They're having so much fun. The worst thing you're going to say is, it's time to go home or it's time to go to sleep, right? In the same way, in Jannah, the one thing that may be coming to people's minds is, oh, this is so amazing. I wish it would never end. But the announcement will be made that you will never die and that there is nothing but life after today. And not only that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ. That not only will you continue to get these blessings, but these blessings will only increase and increase through time. So that question doesn't even come to mind that, oh, what if I get bored? Some people might even have this in their mind, that what if you get bored of Jannah, right? How could you ever get bored if things are only getting better and better? You can only get bored if things stay the same. So if things are getting better and better and better, then how could you ever get bored? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا لَا يَبْغُونَ عَنْهَا حِوَلًا. That they will live in Jannah forever and they will never want to leave from Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jannah talks about many things which we were not allowed to do in this dunya. As Muslims, we know that there are many things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited for us that we're not allowed to do in this dunya. but out of Allah's mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us that in a much better form in the hereafter. For example, we all know that we're not allowed to drink alcohol, but we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will actually grant us the best of all wines in Jannah, to the point where Allah mentions rivers of wine. Allah mentions different rivers that will be in Jannah. مثل الجنة التي وعد المتقون فيها أنهار من ماء غير آسن. Allah talks about the pure rivers of pure water. وأنهار من لبن لم يتغير طعمه. Rivers with the purest of all milk that will never get expired. You know, milk, the one thing you think of is, oh, you can't even leave it out of the fridge for a few hours, it'll get expired. But these rivers of Jannah, Allah clearly mentions that the taste will never change, it will stay the same. وَأَنْهَارٌ مِّنْ خَمْرٍ لَذَّةٍ لِلشَّارِبِينَ. Allah will make rivers of khamr, of wine, and it will be of the best of all taste for those who drink from it. وَأَنْهَارٌ مِّنْ عَسَلٍ مُصَفَّى. And rivers of flowing honey and purified honey. Such an amazing thing, such an amazing aspect of Jannah, or is, again, like I mentioned, in this life we had to stay away from alcohol, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us alcohol, not just any alcohol, but such an alcohol is that Allah mentions that they will not get headaches from it, they will not get the bad effects of alcohol. That pleasureful feeling that people drink, you know, people withstand the terrible taste of alcohol, they withstand the headaches, they withstand all the terrible after effects. Why? Just because they like that feeling, that pleasure they get from getting drunk. Allah will give us that pleasure without all the side effects. That's how amazing the alcohol of Jannah will be. Similarly, we know that it is impermissible to indulge in zina and, you know, in relations before marriage, and even after marriage it's limited. You cannot obviously just do whatever. So in Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the hur, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned so many details, and in the hadith there's so many different details that mentioned about relations in Jannah as well. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the palaces in Jannah. The ahadith mention that the palaces, some of them will have, you know, bricks made of gold. Some mention the bricks made of ruby. Some mention the bricks made of silver. And you know, even the turab, the dirt of Jannah will be made of things like musk. And just the most amazing thing, and the best thing of all is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they will have whatever they want. That is probably the greatest thing, because sometimes somebody may be going through the list of all things I mentioned. They're like, okay, that's nice, but you have a very specific thing that you want. You know, something that you really like in this dunya, maybe you could never have that thing in this dunya. But in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you that, and obviously in the best form. For example, there's one hadith that mentions a man, a simple man, a villager, who in this dunya, he really loved to be a farmer. He really loved to, you know, be involved in agriculture. So he will ask the angels that, can I be a farmer? And they'll be bewildered that, you know, you have all these amazing things. Your food is given to you to the point where, you know, you have such amazing meals that are mentioned in the hadith as well. Such amazing food. The qutufu hadaniya, the fruits of Jannah will literally lower themselves to you. You don't even have to have to reach out your hand and grab them. They'll literally lower themselves for you, the branches, so you can eat straight from there. So you have all of this. So why do you want to be a farmer? But he just had that desire in his heart, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him that as well. Similarly, another hadith is mentioned that a man asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are there horses in Jannah? So obviously there's going to be a much greater creature than horses. But Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, yes, there will be horses, and these horses will be such that they will fly, you can fly, get on their backs, and you can fly to whatever place you want in Jannah. Obviously, I'm sure many of us have thought of how it would be to fly. So that's something that also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us in Jannah. We see that, again, whatever we want, the general rule of Jannah, again, all of these things are specifics mentioned. Allah mentions, you know, specific things regarding the houses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the rivers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all the details. But besides all that, the general rule that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا وَفِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِهِ الْأَنفُسِ. That in Jannah is whatever the nafs desires. Whatever the heart desires, that is in Jannah. And the hadith I mentioned, the hadith Qudsi I mentioned in the beginning, clarifies that there are such things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared in Jannah, أَعْدَدْتُ لِعِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحِينَ مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ, that no eye has ever seen, وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ, no ear has ever heard of, وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ, that no heart has ever even thought of. Right? So again, we can sit here and think, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared such amazing things in Jannah that we can never even imagine, that we can never even think of. So this is something that maybe we should do as a thought exercise that can actually help us to keep Jannah in mind, and to really, you know, feel like Jannah is real in front of us, and feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant us all of this, right? And this is something that we can do. We can just sit sometimes and just think and ponder that what is it that I will get in Jannah? What is it that I want in Jannah? And this is even something that we can encourage our children to do as well. This is a good way to get our children excited and make Jannah real for them. Again, we have to bring the reality in front of our mind. It's not a fairy tale. This is not something that, as people say, pie in the sky. This is definitely going to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised it. So we have to bring that reality in front of us, and as if it's literally there. Again, we know the iman of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum was such that it was as if they're literally seeing Jannah and Jahannam in front of their eyes. To the point where one Sahabi, Harith ibn Malik, told Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him that what is the state of his iman, he said, "Azafat nafsi an dunya," that my nafs is completely away from the dunya. I have no desire for the dunya. Wa ashartu layli, I've spent my nights awake in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa azmatu nahari, and I have made my days thirsty because of fasting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the part I wanted to emphasize on. وَكَأَنِّي أَنظُرُ إِلَىٰ عَرْشِ رَبِّي حِينَ يُجَاءُ بِهِ. It is as if I'm looking at the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it will be brought on the Day of Judgment. وَكَأَنِّي أَنظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ يَتَزَاوَرُونَ فِيهَا. It is as if I will be looking at the people of Jannah. It is as if I'm looking right now at the people of Jannah when they're visiting each other in their homes. Right? And we know that this is something that another amazing aspect of Jannah is that there will be no malice, there will be no hatred. In this dunya, that's one thing. You can have the best of all homes, but within the homes, if the hearts are all broken apart and nobody likes each other and everybody hates each other, then what peace and what serenity is there in that home? You can have all of the luxuries in the world, but if you don't have that happiness and that heart free of malice towards anyone, then you might as well just be homeless, right? But over there in Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّن غِلٍّ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take out any ghil, any sort of ill feelings or hatred that we may have had for each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that out of our hearts. And in another ayah, Allah mentions إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ, that will become brothers, chilling and relaxing on sofas, facing each other, talking about different things. And some ayat it mentions that they will be talking about how, in this dunya, one person will say that إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ, and there was a friend of mine, or not a friend, or an acquaintance of mine, who used to reject this hereafter, and he used to reject the deen. And then they will say, what happened to him? فَاطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. Allah will actually allow them to see the middle of the hellfire, and they will see that friend of his, and he will literally say to himself or to the person, إِن كِدْتَ لَتُرْدِينَ, that you are about to destroy me. Because that friend obviously would probably call him towards disbelief. And this person maybe was thinking about listening to them, but in the end, they overcame that. And so this person will imagine he says, وَلَوْلَا نِعْمَةُ رَبِّي لَكُنْتُ مِنَ الْمُحْضَرِينَ. If it wasn't for the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it wasn't the fact that Allah guided me, then I also would have been one of those people in Jahannam. So imagine that feeling as well, seeing the people in the fire being punished in such a terrible situation, and knowing that you could have been there, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted you Jannah. And that's why people will say in Jannah, as Allah mentions, Alhamdulillahi alladhi hadana lihada. All praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has guided us to this and granted us Jannah. وَمَا كُنَّا لِنَهْتَدِيَ لَوْلَا أَنْ هَدَانَ اللَّهِ. It would never have been guided if it wasn't for the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had guided us. So going back to that hadith that I was mentioning, that this Sahabi would mention that it is as if I'm seeing the people in Jannah visiting each other in their homes. وَكَأَنِّي أَسْمَعُ عُوَاءَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. It is as if I'm hearing the howling of the people of the fire. So Jannah and Jahannam were realities to them. To some extent, that is mentioned in the tafsir of Surah Ad-Dahr, Surah Insan, that Hafidh Billah recited today in Fajr Salah as well. This surah has amazing details about Jannah, so many different things talking about Jannah in so much detail, such beautiful ayat, to the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even mentions therein, وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. Earlier in this surah, Allah mentions how there will be young and handsome servants who will be serving the people the drinks. But then later on in the surah, Allah mentioned that He Himself will be giving the people the drinks directly. Right? So this surah was so amazing that there was one man, is mentioned in a narration, that when he heard Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting these ayat, he actually passed away out of yearning for Jannah. That's how real it was for him. That's how much he really felt like this is going to happen. That's the reality we have to try to build in ourselves. And this will only come if we constantly remind ourselves about Jannah, constantly talk about Jannah. And then we will see again all those benefits that I mentioned earlier about how Jannah is, is a means for us to get past all of our difficulties, about how Jannah will help us to realize the reality of this dunya, and about how it will make us more motivated to do good actions. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us Jannatul Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.